Welcome to the Decent Crypto Podcast. Today is June 14th. We are back at. How you doing?
Man, it has been a crazy ride. I'm doing great. It's beautiful outside. It's like really nice out. I've been trying to touch some grass, taking the dog to the park, basically walking. I've been walking my dog a lot with like one hand on the leash, one hand on the chart.
It's the only way to walk your dog.
Running into people on the street, like they get caught between the chart and the dog. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm sitting back, moisturized in my lane, just watching people blow themselves up in this market, this choppy market. I went into Bitcoin a while ago, and I'm just enjoying. Price moves like 1% up or down any given day, and nothing else really happens. I don't know. It's been how long has it been since we last recorded? Like a month? Well, not since we last recorded, since we published. Maybe like a month and a half. A little
It's
longer.
been a while. I think our
It's been
last
a
episode
while.
might have been the 10 Commandments of meme coin trading.
Meme coins, yeah, meme coins. That's when meme coins are going crazy.
Yeah, that's
That
why we
was like,
didn't. That's why we haven't released an episode.
yeah, exactly. We sold our listeners the top. So thank you, listeners, for being exit
Exit
liquidity.
liquidity.
We thank you for your service, and now we're back. So
Dude, March
now that we're back,
21st was our last published
March
episode.
21st. That is insane because the exact Pico top was March 25th. That was the Pico top for everything. For pretty sure for Bitcoin, but definitely for alts, for Coinbase stock, for my portfolio, for
Ordinals,
Ordinals a little later because they had runes coming.
runes, yeah.
But yeah, it was the top for basically everything. And so I'm glad we nailed that actually. So now that begs the question, are we back? Is this the bottom? Is the market over? What's the move here?
So, I mean, I think back in like, I don't know, maybe like a week before the halving. So the halving was April 20th. And I've had this just like sinking feeling that it's over. That like, you know, the I think this is a good place to start. Like, is it over? Have we seen the top for this cycle? Is it a cycle? Is it an echo bubble? Like, where do you draw the line? And I think like when you look at the market, like the market is about expectations, right? So you have catalysts, you have things coming up, you have things that are priced in and not priced in. You're trying to get ahead of new narratives. You're trying to sell old narratives. And I just think like I don't see much on the horizon to be bullish about, right? So we have the ETH ETF. We have like the political sort of acceptance of crypto by first by Trump and then by Biden. Biden's accepting political donations now in crypto. And it feels like if we were in a bull, like when you're in a bull, good news sends the coins, right? And when you're in a bear, no amount of good news can send the coins. And that sort of feels like where we are now. It's felt very bear markety. It's like Trump says that he's going to accept crypto for donations and stuff pumped like a couple percent maybe, right? The Biden administration with like the demise of Gary Gensler and the ETH ETF and like the SEC saying that like they're going to accelerate approval or whatever. Yeah, ETH sent like 25%, but like the rest of the market didn't really. And it's all kind of reversed since then, right? I mean, ETH hasn't fully reversed, but it's still, well below all-time highs. And it just doesn't feel like it feels like we're getting positive news after positive news and the market just doesn't budge. And it also doesn't feel like there's much to look forward to. So like, what do we have on the horizon? We have the ETH ETF is like a potential bullish catalyst, right? I think had the ETH ETF gotten approved in like February when we had more momentum behind the Bitcoin ETF, then it would have really sent ETH, and ETH would have hit all-time highs and all that. But now we've seen like the flows start to slow down into the Bitcoin ETF. Everyone's wondering like, is this actually a new paradigm, or like, does it not really matter? Are the boomers actually going to buy our coins? And it doesn't feel like it feels like people are basically pricing in that like the ETH ETF isn't going to change that much, and it's not going to like catalyze that much demand for ETH, which isn't going to catalyze that much demand for Pepe, and other meme coins, Mog, right? And so that's kind of like, not a great narrative. You have the halving, but the halving takes indeterminate amount of time to really set in, 6 to 9 months at least, right? And for the summer, it just doesn't feel like there's anything to be bullish about. Um, so I'm kind of coming at this from the perspective of, are we like spoiled, right? Everybody feels entitled to this 4 year cycle. And maybe that's still the case. Maybe this is just like a temporary lull in the market in the middle of the 4 year cycle. But I don't think that's a good enough reason to be like blindly bullish, right? So I've been pretty bearish for a little while now. I managed to sell a fair amount of my WIF on the way up, and like a fair amount more at around $4.40, which was nuts. Um, and I just sold it for that part for USDC. The first part I sold for Sol, and I think that's kind of like the reason I want to bring this up is like, I'm sitting here with my on my Saga phone, getting ready to dump my soul, and I'm wondering if I should do it. And I'm just curious, like, what do you think? Like, is this the start of like the next bear? Is this just like an accumulation zone before we start to go really parabolic? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are mid curving this like the hardest I've seen in a long time. Like, first of all, you know me, I don't really sell. Um, but that said, like, I think if you were going to sell, like, when we published our episode, that was a good time to sell. Um, yeah, like, I think everybody wishes they sold the top. I wish I sold the top. The thing is, like, now things have slowed down a little bit. I felt this way the whole time. Like, what was there really to look forward to this cycle, right? Like, there was the Bitcoin ETF. You could argue the whole last 6 months has been driven by nothing but the Bitcoin ETF, right? Like, even with Solana, it's not like there was anything new within the Solana ecosystem that really happened that catalyzed this run from what it was sitting at last year, $8 to $20, basically the whole year, and then it just rips from 20 to 200 in the span of like 3 months, right? Like, there's no like fundamental catalysts that drove that. Like, you could argue maybe a couple of airdrops, like, sure, but there wasn't like a massive kind of catalyst there. Um, I think it was really just, the market turns. There's more liquidity injected from whatever macro improves. The NASDAQ is going up. There's an AI bubble happening. And alongside that, risk assets just get bid because there's a way to do it. And I think once you see that happen, right, like the Bitcoin ETF gets approved and the inflows are pretty crazy. Like, it's not like it did just okay, or it's not like it underperformed. It's literally the best ETF launch of all time. That you've had everybody from like Larry Fink to like, people who've been bearish on crypto for years and years just coming out and basically saying this is a stamp of approval. And like, that was 6 months ago. It's not like this happened 5 years ago and people are just forgetting about it. I think people have the collective memory of a brainfish, or of a goldfish, brainfish, of a goldfish in this industry. My brain is getting fried being in this fucking space. But now we literally have part two of that happening in a month, potentially in 3 months, potentially in 6 months at least, at the latest. And it's going to happen again. Like, if you look at, I did this the other day. I looked at the Google trend for Ethereum. It's basically down only from like 2018 or whatever. Maybe there's like a little bubble in 2021. It's just down only from then. Like, people think Ethereum is dead. People don't really know that it exists in the kind of like people definitely don't know it's a multi-$100 billion asset class. Like it's basically an asset class almost like on its own, right? Like if you look at all this tokenization stuff that's going to happen. So like this whole rant is to basically say like we're just at the beginning of whatever's about to take place. And I think like people are really missing this. Like, yeah, sure. Could we get a dip for? Could we get chopped for 3 more months? Could we get a big dip? Yes, sure. But that's usually how bull markets go. Like you get multiple 20%, 30%, even 40% pullbacks. In alts, you might get a 50% pullback. That's normal. So I don't think that is the end. I think that people are really, really, really mid curving this, and this is not like a 3 month prediction. This is like a 1 year plus kind of prediction. Like this is not the end of the cycle. The Bitcoin ETF just happened. We saw what happened. The ETH ETF is coming. We know it's coming. You can say what you want about the election. Like I think it's pretty clear how it's going to go. You see all the rhetoric that's coming out. Like I don't know how you could possibly be bearish over the next 6+ months, 2 years, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coherent bear case is liquidity, right? And so we're still in like a high interest rate environment, and that makes every move in risk assets harder to underwrite as being long term,
But how
right?
is that different from 6 months ago?
6 months so that's what I'm saying is like long term, right? So like 6 months ago is like, okay, in the short term you can have a rally in risk assets, right? And I think it was sort of this game of placing your bets and hoping that your horse is like one of the faster ones in the race. And so I think this is like why we see such negative sentiment on the timeline is like for most people, they didn't have enough cash to invest in Bitcoin to just ride Bitcoin. Like they had to buy alts in order to like make meaningful amounts of
Well,
money,
they well
right?
they bought pump.fun coins. That's why everybody on the timeline is in shambles right now.
Yeah, for sure. But I think like it's a spectrum, right? Of like Bitcoin to pump.fun coins, and everything in the middle is like hard to like. You had to get it right. There was like so much more dispersion over the last 6 months than in historic periods of like Bitcoin going to all-time highs. I mean, I don't know if this was the sentiment. I feel like the sentiment in 2020 was like whatever you touched would just go up 20% a day. So if you bought like Aave or like food tokens or whatever, it was just like a much more unified movement up in prices across the board. And so, with the exception of maybe like Dino coins, right? So if you didn't get Solana and instead you bought ETH, right? Sol is up like 10x from the bottom. Was up like 20x if you bought it at $8, right? More than 20x. But like ETH was up like 3x, right? And
Which
it
is still, I mean, it's still you still did really well.
yeah, three x is pretty good, right? But if you bought Matic or if you bought like Matic is almost at its bear market lows right now. It's like below 60 cents, and I think its bear market low was like 40, like when Three Arrows collapsed, right? So I think if you didn't buy the right stuff, you really didn't do that well.
Yeah, but this
And
is the same story every cycle. The old coins
the
just
old
die.
coins don't, yeah.
Old
But
coins die every cycle. Like that's not really new. Like if you had bought Zcash last cycle, you were still going to zero. If
yeah,
you had bought, whatever, like what was it, the name coin the cycle before that, you were still going to zero. Like you just don't buy old coins. Like I mean, that's the story every cycle. If you had bought Athena when it launched, or if you had bought what was it, the stupid airdrop one, uh,
Dimension,
Celestia, uh,
Celestia, yeah,
launch, like you had made a 10x. So like new coins definitely pumped. Um,
yeah.
I think like this liquidity thing, like yes, I don't think it's 2020 again, right? But it's not like there's no new liquidity coming in. Like you just have to look at the Bitcoin inflows, like Bitcoin ETF inflows, to see the fact that there is liquidity in the market. I mean, you just have to look at Nvidia stock to look at the fact that there's liquidity in the market. It's not it's not like things are just like, like I don't know, I don't really buy that, like, as a, like, there's a company that has gone to $3 trillion market cap, where it was like, I don't know what it's added in the last like year, but it's added more than the entire crypto industry to its market cap in the past year, you know.
Yeah, but it's a similar thing, right? It's like the overarching point that I'm trying to make is that this cycle has been, I think, more dependent than prior cycles on buying the right stuff. And I think the like new coins, right? So Optimism, Arbitrum, like they didn't do that well. Aptos, Sui didn't do that well, right?
To me, those are old coins. Those were last cycle coins.
Yeah. So what did we have then?
We
FriendTech,
had,
right?
yeah, we had FriendTech, we had Celestia, we
So
had what, like Jupiter, Jito,
Pith,
yeah,
Wormhole.
all the
Yeah,
stuff that I don't touch. Yeah, basically all the new coins this cycle were meme coins.
yeah.
Um, so
Um,
you kind of had to just be in on meme coins.
yeah,
Uh,
but even there, I mean, like one good meme made portfolios this cycle,
oh,
right?
for sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you could have.
It was really that thing in like whatever December of last year, like December to March. You could have literally put money into any meme coin. Like before Pump.Fun really took over, like I had friends, I had many stories of people who made six figs on the dumbest coins, like Memani coin, six figs, Herald, six figs. Like not even stuff that's like mid
Yeah,
tier, that's just like random shit, like it really got to that level of stupidity.
yeah, but I mean, at the same time, like if you'd bought any of the airdrops, like you didn't do very well. If you,
Buys airdrops, like these are all things that, like, if you
I mean,
spend, like, I don't know. It feels like these are things that like have been just it's been the same story for years and years and years.
so like I think for us, it was obvious that like Solana meme coins were what you needed to buy, right? Or like Pepe and Mog.
I
But
mean, I wouldn't even say that part was obvious. I would just say that, like, the market as a whole did way better than I think. Like, I
when
think
you think this like selection only thesis gives credit to,
yeah, for sure. Like, I think if you look at the returns, like if you just look at the majors, right? Like, if you look at the top 10, I really only pay attention to Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol, and they all did spectacularly well. But even if you look at BNB, or, well, like, yeah, if you just go through the top 10, like
yeah,
BNB just hit all time highs. BNB just crossed 1,000 like a few days ago.
that's pretty
What is it
wild.
called? Doge. I think Doge has been pumping lately. I have no idea what Doge does. Okay,
It actually didn't do very well. Yeah.
Doge did not do well. So, okay, whatever. Throw that into the old coin thesis.
Yeah.
But I do think, like, across the board, like a lot of things caught a bid. I do think, like, a lot of the old stuff did not. But, like, if you look at how many meme coins went to hundreds of millions, some going to billions, like that's where most of the liquidity went. Like they didn't go to old coins or like real projects, which were
Utility.
never
Yeah.
real to start with, but it just went to other things, right? Like how many projects went to hundreds of millions last cycle, right? Like it was probably, I don't know, a few dozen, and like that's probably how many meme coins went to a few hundred million just in, by March. So I
Yeah.
do think the liquidity was there. I do think there was like a across the board up only kind of touching everything, but it was just like a completely different sector, and it was almost all on Solana. So like if you just refuse to touch the chain, then like yeah, sure you missed, but it's like if you just touched the chain at all and you threw money at anything, like it was kind of just like spray and pray, you make money. The way it was alt cycle last time, but most of those alts were on ETH, I guess. or just their own chains. They're like they were their own L1s.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think okay, I see what you're saying. So if you refused Solana, then you missed, but otherwise, like you could have made money on most things on the chain.
Yeah, like
Um,
I do think the kind of like liquidity, like the like liquidity argument, I do agree that it didn't spread to the whole like ecosystem the way the like crypto ecosystem used to be, which is like every L1 pumps, every like every L2 ecosystem pumps, like everything just pumps at once. But I do think like there was this kind of time of
I mean,
like
there wasn't even a rotation.
no, there was no rotation. There was just like an up only cycle, but it was like five things, you know? It was like if you weren't in ordinals, if you weren't in Solana meme coins, if you weren't in the majors, even like if you just didn't hold majors or even crypto equities, like all those things pumped. And they all were like kind of did go up only. There's just like no liquidity entering those other ecosystems at all.
Yeah. So the thing is, if you're like, so say we underwrite like improving liquidity conditions over the next year, right? And like many things go up. You really need to be careful not to get caught in an ecosystem that doesn't catch that bid, right? And I think that's more the thing is like if we don't have just like continuous up only, or if we don't have like improving liquidity, because the thing that catches a bid can rotate, at any point, right? And so if like we chop or range down for the next 2 months, then you might not want to hold the stuff that you're holding for the next 2 months because it may not
Yeah,
be the stuff that comes back.
yeah,
And that's what I'm getting at with like this selection thing is like psychologically, do I want to underwrite continuing to hold WIF down to $1 because it could be something else in 3 months that's like a little bit more
yeah.
fashionable, a little bit more interesting, a little bit less saturated, right? And I think like over, September through March, we did have periods where, I mean, remember like in January, I think Seoul went from like a high of like 120 down to like a low of like 80. Uh,
Yeah.
and but it happened quickly enough that when the market conditions reversed, Seoul was the thing to go back up. So this is like the
Mhm.
block grays meme that he always posts, where he's like, "What's that time for utility coins? Soul memes again." It's that square hole meme. That one's pretty funny. So I don't know, like if we're sitting here like, okay, I want to log off for the summer, what do I hold, right?
Mhm.
Bitcoin for sure, right? I think you've got that one totally nailed correctly. ETH probably just because of the ETF, right? And then I don't even know if you can underwrite Soul. Like I feel like Soul has hit sort of like what's the word, saturation, right? It's
Mhm.
like so omnipresent on everyone's feed that it's just become like very consensus. And I don't know if there's a lot of marginal buyers here.
Mm. Yeah, I do think that last take about being more measured on soul for sure hits. Um, it's not that I don't see the marginal buyer. I do think that it's got this like as much as I hate all this like celebrity meta whatever. I think it's the dumbest thing possible. I think it's found a clear product market fit as being just the easiest place to go. Um, like there's basically nobody launching a coin on ETH anymore. And I don't expect that to change. I also don't expect that to go anywhere else. So I think it's kind of solidified itself in that respect, which is valuable, right? Like whenever, these like new metas pop up where like everybody's launching a coin, where like everybody's trying to catch the next pump, it will inevitably be on Sol. And what that kind of means is like it's the home of this like retail degeneracy casino, which will be around for a long time.
I mean,
And so I
that is what crypto is for, right?
that is what crypto is for, yeah. I
Last cycle it was ETH, right? It was like it looked a little different. It was NFTs and that sort of thing, but it was very much like launch a thing, speculate on the thing, right?
Yeah. So I do think that it solidified itself in that way, but I do also agree that with stuff like Pump.Fun, it has saturated the market, it has fragmented liquidity, and it's just made it a lot harder. It's just made it so much more PvP. And I guess, like, to your earlier point about liquidity, like what's happening to the market overall is kind of happening within Solana at a more micro level where it's like with Pump.Fun, it's just so hard for any one thing to catch, to like get attention above, some other thing. Where like, oh, some dev decided to, bleach himself on Pump.Fun live stream. Like some dev will just, light himself on fire on Pump.Fun live stream. Like this is dumb stuff, right? So it's like I think it's just kind of reached a saturation point, but that doesn't make me bearish. That makes me just like more cautious. Like I wouldn't be a buyer here, but if you're holding, like, and again, this goes back to me just being a holder by nature and not a seller, and like less of a trader. Um, but I do think that there are probably better opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah,
I just don't know what to do right now. Like I think like buying Bitcoin and holding like is just the easiest thing to do, safest thing to do. Like I feel comfy, very nice. Um, yeah. Um,
yeah. I mean, so it's interesting. If you like, I think this microcosm point is a really good one. Like, what do you think about the saturation of like non-soul things? Like, I feel like we kind of when base launched, we talked a bit about this like block space fatigue, and there's just so much block space right now, and there's not nearly enough attention or users or like liquidity coming into the crypto space to support all of these different ecosystems and like the tokens within them, the layer one tokens, the layer two tokens. Like, um, do you think like yeah, I'm just curious. Like, what do you think of like altcoin saturation, for example?
yeah, I mean, I think that this is the main reason you're seeing all this fragmentation, right? It's like, what do I possibly buy in this whole market where there are all these Dino coins? There's way too much block space. There's way too many projects. There's data availability layers for data that doesn't need to be written anywhere. Um,
You have three
yes,
data availability layers. You have fucking Avail, you have Celestia, and you have EigenDA.
yeah,
And
I can.
no one asked for this, right?
Yeah,
Like nobody ever said, "Oh, you know what? I really need is a different data availability layer," right? It's like who are the customers of a data availability layer? It's the devs that are building an L2. And why do they do that? So that they can get like alignment for a token pump and attention and like trying to like extract some community. And like who funds these things? It's like VCs that maybe they missed the first one, so they gotta fund the second data availability layer, the third data availability layer, right? It's like I feel like
yeah,
I feel like the product market fit is no longer driven by actual market demand. It's driven by other players' incentives, whether that's devs or VCs, right? Or like liquid investors. And I think like that's the problem at its core with the huge like overfunding of infrastructure projects over the last 2 3 years is like the incentives didn't align to fund something or to like build something that genuinely had end user demand. And so we see all of this like, it reminds me of those ghost cities in China, right? Where like it's just like way overbuilt and there's nobody living there, there's nobody shopping there, there's nobody eating there. And I think like I think just overall, I'm feeling like this cycle has been so much more extractive, right? It feels like ordinals are probably my favorite example of this, right? Where like if you talk to like a Bitcoin maxi, the use case for ordinals is very clear. It's like, this is the strongest, hardest ledger. It's publicly viewable. It's like verifiable, and whatever you write to Bitcoin will be on chain forever, right? And so it lends itself to use cases like, I don't know, deeds, right, and like land management and um, copyrights and things that need to last 100 years, right? And instead, what we've done with it is we've said, well, the bull case on ordinals looks something like, there's so much liquidity sitting there. Bitcoin is the largest crypto asset. If you thought NFTs were good, and like NFTs can't work on L2s because there's not enough liquidity, imagine how good they'll be on Bitcoin relative to how well they did on ETH, right? And the sort of undercurrent is very much like, I'm going to be early to this, and then other people will step in and buy my bags. And like, I know that that's been true, obviously, since the dawn of time. But like, being early and getting people to buy your bags is the use case. But it just feels so much more transparent this cycle. And I don't know if that's like a me thing and I'm picking up on it more, or if it's just that like the Ponzi's are less fun and interesting. And so you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think they're just transparently Ponzi's now. I think before people tried to hide the fact that they were building a Ponzi behind some kind of infrastructure. And now it's like, well, there's already too much infra. Why don't we just build something that's blatantly nothing? It's like you see this across the board, right? Like whether it's ordinals or meme coins or like runes now or like, whatever the case may be. It's like we're basically just building nothing on top of whatever infrastructure exists. And that's the game we're playing. It's like,
Yeah. Okay, so runes is something that I'd love to talk about on this segment. So like, this is like, it feels very validating to think about it this way, because it's like, runes allegedly had something slightly better than like BRC20s, right? But they're still kind of like fungible tokens built on Bitcoin, with like a little bit of a marketing gimmick around like launching at the halving. Um, but it's not like I feel like we used to build things in crypto that like were better than the last thing, like in some notable way. And like, this is why when we do our deep dives, it's like, why does this exist, right? And it's like, I don't know if I can answer that for runes. Like, allegedly there's like a slight improvement on the way that they function relative to BRC20s, but the standard still doesn't support like AMMs. It doesn't support liquidity pools. And what are we going to need for that? Another Bitcoin fungible token standard that I can be early to and dump on everyone later,
exactly.
right? And it's like, okay, that one feels like a crypto project that I like, right? Where it's like, okay, here's a problem: we don't have AMMs, and so all the trading happens OTC in like discrete packets of coins, right? And there's no way to have like sitting liquidity there such that I know that I can get out if I need to. I basically just have to list below the floor and hope that somebody buys it. Um, so that's a problem with like market structure that like would be better approached through a new token standard that allows for pooling of tokens and AMMs and all that. That's a project that like, you're like, okay, cool, I can get behind this. This is actually an improvement on the thing that exists before. But it feels like instead it's just like, it reminds me of like sort of the euthanasia roller coaster of last cycle, which was like the next L1, and we're going to run back the same playbook, right? It's like early as a service, I think is what Kobe called it, right? Like, it feels like everything that got built this cycle is kind of that, right? Where it's like, L1s are done, so we're going to be early to L2s, right? Or like optimistic L1, L2s are done, so we're going to be early to ZK. And none of these things are like unlocking any significant improvement for the end user or the technology and its use cases. It doesn't bring us closer to like anything, right? And I can't answer, why does this exist for 95% of projects out there? Why does Dimension exist? Why does what's the other one? Why does Saga exist, right? Like, why does the nth roll up as a service provider exist? What are these things unlocking that weren't possible before? And the answer is like kind of nothing, right? So I think
Well,
like
you can't raise VC funds with that kind of pitch, Matt.
right. Yeah. Okay, so that's the thing. The primary market in crypto is no longer between the developer and the masses the way that it always was. The primary market in crypto has evolved to become between the developer and the VC.
So I have a very specific thesis on this.
Okay.
It all started with Ethereum scaling, right? Like very real problem. 2017, we were both there. We saw CryptoKitties take down the whole market. 2021, we were both there. We were trying to do NFT mints, and I remember I was trying to mint the Lazy Lions, right? I was like, okay, this is a cool collection. It's probably gonna pump. I'm trying to mint it. Just the mint cost, not or just the gas fees, not the mint for the actual NFT, just the gas to mint a Lazy Lion. This one ETH was over 4K. It was 3.5 ETH. And I actually was gonna do it. I was like still thinking about it. I was like, everything is pumping so hard. This is definitely gonna hit a 4 ETH floor, you know. Alas, I did not. But you know, we saw that, right? So that's a real problem. That problem got taken over by a bunch of VCs that realized that this is the only way to make money in crypto. You either now there's a business model where you own the sequencer yourself, and you're just basically taking a cut of every single transaction that happens on the L2. But this is a business model in crypto, right? Like you can raise money for these infrastructure products, and you can charge a fee for when people use them. So Paradigm and Andreessen and all these VCs have been funding infrastructure for the past 5+ years on this notion that there's just too much demand for block space and we don't have any way to fulfill it. Now, obviously, that inverted like 2 years ago, 2+ years ago, when the bear market hit. Solana had been created. There is way more than enough block space now. All these VC funded L2s exist. These roll up as a service providers exist. These data availability layers exist. So that's all now there. And now, if you see what happened yesterday, Paradigm announces that they just raised another $850 million fund that's only focused on applications, no more infrastructure. So, they're now setting out and raising money to try and solve a problem that they created and had raised a ton of money to solve this previous problem. So, that's just the state of the market. Like, if you were one of those VCs, like you just fleeced a bunch of LPs, I wonder what those returns look like for LPs. Like, do you think they got? They keep raising more money, so I'm assuming the LPs made out well. But
Yeah,
I have no
I
idea.
still feel pretty good, right? Because first, VC is this like spray and pray model where like you only need one to hit it out of the park. And I think like second, the price discovery, like I really liked Kobe's writing on this. Like the price discovery mechanism has moved from the public market to the private market. And so as a VC, like you got in at such a staggeringly low valuation if you like invested throughout the bear that like it doesn't even really matter what happens in the
Yeah,
bull.
that's true. All these high FTV projects where even if it goes down only, like you dump right on the launch, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Of course, they made out really well. What am I thinking here? But I think that is the reason why we are where we are. And now, like you said, I don't think we'll see a ton of new um, infrastructure getting built. What I do see happening is basically every application that has any kind of traction, whether they're in crypto or non-crypto, launching their own L2, and uh, yeah, just turning that into a revenue stream.
I mean, that sounds so terrible, right? Like,
It's inevitable, dude. Like everybody is looking at what Base has done, and there. I mean, it's just free money.
yeah. I mean, the thing is that it's like I don't know. It feels ultimately pretty predatory, right? Like I'm in this group chat of like relative normies, right? And they're like people that like don't work in crypto, but they're like pretty crypto knowledgeable. and it's like 30 people or something. And I remember in like January, they were like, okay, Solana is over. It's time to do base, right? And so all of the activity on base, I think, has come from people with the same thesis that, like, look, the attention's going to shift from Solana at some point and it's going to shift to base. And I'm going to be early to the meme coins there because that's what worked on Solana. And then I'm going to dump them on everyone as they bridge over to base, right? Um, and I think you see the same thing with most L2 marketing approaches where it's like Blast backed by Paradigm and Pac-Man. And so everybody's like, okay, I'll bridge over there because this is going to be worth something because I'll, like this is a good enough like group of names on the thing to like make it a possible next destination for people. And so I'll bridge over, I'll be early, I'll pay gas fees, and that goes to centralized sequencer. And it's like a lot of these L2s are like full of broken dreams, right? Where like the meme coins can't break 100 mil, like even in the best case scenario. The DeFi projects are all like friendly forks, which I think is disgusting. It's like, what the fuck is Velodrome and Aerodrome? That is bullshit, right? Like Merchant Mo and Trader Joe. It's like, okay, I get it. Your existing product is on a chain that doesn't have users or attention, so you're going to launch on a different one and try to like launch another coin there because hopefully you can cash out that one. That's like, it's so transparent, right? And I think like I don't know, it just feels like the revenue that these L2 sequencers are generating is not from like organic demand for differentiated use cases. It's like from people who are PvPing each other, hoping and waiting for other people to come in. And like it's always like the normies are coming and they're gonna come to base because it's got the Coinbase brand,
Yeah,
right?
but the difference here is that revenue is revenue. Revenue is not users, which is like, oh, you gamed users for like 6 months, like Farcaster, right? Like, okay, users, like, okay, it's like spikes up forever and then it's just boom, dead, dead. Like, user count, like, doesn't matter, done. Like, revenue is actual money. Like, you see actual money, you're going to go to it. Like, I don't know. I just think the incentives are there for anybody with users. Like, just think about it, right? Like, if you have a application of like, it doesn't really even matter what you're doing, right? Like any kind of application, especially where there are financial transactions involved. Like, and I'm not saying this is going to start happening this year. I'm saying just in the future, it's going to be so heavily incentivized for you to own that entire network. And instead of you paying 3% to Stripe or Visa or whatever else, like that goes straight in your pocket as revenue. Like, there's just no reason that you're not going to want to do that. And then you add in like, oh, you can launch your own token. Like most people are not going to be able to do that because they're in the U.S. But I just think the incentives are so strong there that there will be a lot of these kind of L2s popping up. I feel like I'm talking like a VC now, where it's just like I'm shilling you on like more roll ups or something like that. But that's definitely
Yeah,
not the intention. I
I
just think
mean,
like,
the incentives are there. It's gonna
yeah,
happen,
like I
right?
don't support it. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think most people need L2s. In fact, I've been anti this whole thesis for a long time. I haven't touched Ethereum this whole cycle. I just think that it will happen. Like, it's just inevitable, you know?
I was going through my transactions on Coinbase Wallet actually the other day. That's my ETH wallet now,
Mm,
and it's just me buying Miladies. That's all I've done on ETH this entire cycle.
hilarious.
uh,
I have an idea. I have an idea. You know
okay,
how Barachain is proof of liquidity based consensus, but their like other big thing is they have within the L1 they have a built-in DEX and a built-in lending protocol and a built-in perp DEX. So we launch an L2, but with a built-in pump.fun. So you just not only are you incentivized to use the chain and then you collect the fees from the people using the chain, you incentivize to launch them to launch their own coins. and you take the celeb meta to a whole different level. You incentivize every new user to launch their own coin.
Oh,
Just,
yeah. You know what would be cool is like if you took your L2 transaction fees and paid them out as like bounties for like when a coin hits a certain amount of market cap and a certain amount of liquidity, you like pay the person who launched the coin. So you pay them like if it gets to like $1 million market cap, you pay them like 2 ETH
mm,
or something. And then if it
oh
gets to
yeah,
like
cool.
20 million, you pay them like 10 ETH or something.
Oh, with like the trading fees and like with the gas fees that you collect and stuff like that. Oh, that would be
Yeah, yeah.
cool. Nice. Oh, I like that. Just like the full degen chain. I know there's a degen chain, but it's not like an actual degen chain.
Yeah, in fact, they're the
Pretty cool.
normiest people in the
Hey,
space
the
because
most
they're
normie.
hard. Degen chain
Yeah,
is such a cosplay thing. It's so
yeah,
funny. It's like all
it's
these like super normie like Ethereum researchers or whatever that are like on
yeah,
like Farcaster because the Twitter's not woke enough for them. And
like the
and then
green.
they launched the Degen coin.
Yeah, they're the Greenland of blockchains. It's like, bro, come on, find a new angle. Like,
Oh man, it's pretty. There's a marketing lesson in there though of like calling your user, like selling your user on their own self-image. Like every single person on Degen chain is like, yeah, yeah, I'm a Degen. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like like what's the use case for crypto, right? Outside of like all the normal stuff. The use case is permissionless, censorship resistant transfer of value, transfer and storage of value, right? And you can add in some hard money economics if you want on the Bitcoin angle. Uh, and then you can add in, I don't know, open source ethos on like decentralized social or whatever. You can add in IP owner, like digital ownership for the metaverse and music NFTs and whatever. But beyond that, I feel like the use case for 95% of people and like capital in the space is speculation, right? And I think an L2 is just an inferior place to speculate relative to an L1 unless you can really grow that brand somehow. Like it's not like inherent, like Barachain I think is a great example. They're not an L1 or an L2. They're like they don't even have a chain, right? Like it will be an L1 someday, but like it almost doesn't matter because the attention is there, right? And what I wonder is like do you think do you think it's just a question of like hacking the marketing playbook correctly uh, in order to like make your L2 a de facto destination that doesn't suffer from I've been calling it the L2 ick. Like do you think it's like just a matter of time before an L2 manages to like cross the chasm, get the attention that Solana has today, that Ethereum had in the past? Or do you think there's like something structurally problematic about being an L2 and that'll never happen?
no, I think it's actually much closer than we think. I think it will happen. And I think it's much closer than we think. I think it's like if if FriendTech had launched as an L2, I think we would have basically been there. If FriendTech had launched as an L2 and its founder wasn't like a complete loony, psycho, schizophrenic, insane person, then we would have already been there.
It's a tall
Because like
ask.
when they launched, its base was basically just their L2. Like there was no activity on it. Like I and like a few people in our Church of Pepe group chat were like the only people that had bridged and bought Toshi. And that's because like one guy in there was like, "Oh, we have to do this," and I was like, "All right, whatever, whatever." So there were like five people I knew that had ever bridged to base, and then Friend Tech happens, and everybody's on it, and they did it so well, right? Because you didn't even know you were bridging to base. It was just like send your ETH here. It doesn't matter what chain you send it from. It doesn't matter what chain you send it to. We'll track the funds. Like it was just so easy. The wallet was done through Privy's, log in through
So
your
good.
Apple
So
ID, like
good.
all that kind of stuff. Like just very easy. So I think all the tools are there. I really just think that there's no demand, right? Like what are people gonna use it for? Like FriendTech was probably the biggest like actual application breakthrough this whole cycle. Um, I don't know how many users they had, but like that kind of app is probably what will do it. Not even saying like social app, just saying like something that's very much just native to your normal experience, where you're not really even trying to bridge to a new chain or anything like that. You're just like, let me just go use this cool new app. And then you go there and it's like, all right, set up a wallet or whatever the case may be.
I mean, I think FriendTech and Pumped Up Fun unlocked a very similar thing. I think these are the two breakout apps of the cycle,
Yeah,
which
for sure.
is like they really facilitated the financialization of things, right?
Yeah.
And that was like a thesis that you kind of had to be early to in order to like really extract the most from or make the most money this cycle. Like you had to kind of be on board with this like hyper financialization thesis.
Mhm.
And then from there, it just made it so much easier, right? So with FriendTech, it was like just sign in with Twitter, and now your Twitter account is a financial asset, right? With Plum.fun, it's attach your JPEG, name it, add a little description, boom, financial asset, right? And I think that like those are the apps this cycle, like it or not, right? Like that's kind of the thing about like what drives block-based demand is very much just like financial speculation. And these are the apps that made it easier, which is why they were so successful. I think Fantasy Top to a degree, although I think they kind of burnt I think they like played their hand at the wrong point in time, like could have also been that, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, those are definitely the three main I mean, just also look at the fees that they all generated. Like all generated 20 to 30 million dollars in fees. Like the story here is that anything that you can create that makes it easier to interact with the chain, where you don't have to interact with the chain, where like everything is done for you can collect massive premiums doing that. Like you can collect massive fees just in taking care of that one step of not having to continuously like interact with the chain in complex ways. So like, okay, you want to create a token, that's an interaction with the blockchain that Pump.fun will take care of you with one click. You know, do you want to financialize an asset that is essentially your own IP and let people trade that? Okay, FriendTech will enable that with just one click, and you don't even have to like create an on-chain kind of footprint, nothing like that. You just like sign in with your Apple ID; it's all done for you. So like anytime you can abstract away the wallet, and anytime you can abstract away the on-chain interactions, you can like from a business model perspective, like I don't think enough people caught on to this, but like you can layer in a 5% transaction fee. In the case of FriendTech, 10% on each side, so 20% transaction fee, and people won't even blink. People won't care, right? Like that's just the nature of this market. Like that is where we are in the market. Like that's kind of the thing that we're early on right now is like you don't necessarily need to own the block space, but anything you do that makes it easier for people to use the block space in a way that's fun and like you said, financializes like essentially anything. Like people will use that, and then you just take a rake and you're the dealer or you're the house at that point, and the house always wins.
the house always wins. Um, do you think? Okay, so getting back to it, you think we're in a lull in the middle of a bowl?
Yeah, I actually think I have been getting more into this super cycle idea. I do think we might be there, but I don't know for sure. I think we're definitely in a new kind of market where I don't think we're going to see like the every 4 years blow off top, massive bottoms. I think we'll just keep seeing like decent run ups, 30% pullback, decent run ups, 30% pullback. I think alts will go very similarly to what you just described, where it's like altcoins just die, new coins pop up, some of them rise to the top. But like I think majors will kind of move similarly to all risk assets.
Would you count Soul as a major, or you're just saying
Yeah,
it's a
yeah, for
major?
sure. Yeah, I think so. I think Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, BNB.
BNB, man, what a coin! I was so bullish on it when we did our BSC episode.
Dude,
Uh,
I know, and we just completely faded too.
yeah.
Uh, we both left it. We're like, holy shit, this is so great, and then we just completely faded. It was probably $200 at that time too.
Yeah, I mean, I have four BNB sitting in an old Binance account somewhere. Someday
Oh, that's
Americans will be.
for sure. See, playing with that money in jail right now.
Man, I can't believe he's actually in jail. That's so
That is
crazy.
crazy. I know. That's so. I've been thinking about what he's going to do when he comes out of jail. He's probably just sitting on like 10 to like $50 billion in whatever currencies. It's going to be
Yeah,
pretty.
I mean, it's an interesting thing that like no matter how much money you have, you can't put a price on the peace of mind that you're not gonna have to wind up in jail eventually. And so being able to like clear your record for the small price of 4 months, pretty good.
Oh yeah, really good. Honestly, he made out as well as he possibly could have hoped to. Like as
Yeah.
long as he comes out alive after 4 months, he is chilling. He's gonna have all of his money, right? Like at least most of his money, whatever $4 billion gone from Binance. Like who cares? He probably made that the week after.
Yeah. I think like there was someone put out an estimate today that he has like tens of billions of BNB, that he owns like most of the supply of BNB or something,
He
hundreds of
owns
billions.
like 70%, right? 70 or 90% or something. Also, one of our friends was saying that like of all of the Launchpad tokens from the original like BNB Launchpad, he like personally owns 10 to 20% of all of the token supplies of all of them. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know how much of that is true, or what Binance owns, or yeah, any of that. But I think he's gonna be fine.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else you want to touch on? What do you think? Should I buy a Bitcoin puppet here? Should I just stop fading
Oh,
them and buy one, or is it over?
0.14. No, no, no. I don't think it's over, dude. I really don't think it's over. I even think runes will come back. I think people are just sleeping on this stuff. Um, like, look at what happened with BRC20s. It was the exact same pattern. It's like everything dies. Like, if you really were gonna play this, like, yeah, you should have actually sold pre runes hype because everything went crazy. And now I think it's time to start buying the stuff you like
Scale
because
into high conviction tokens.
scale in the high conviction tokens because it's gonna be the same thing. Like there will be like I don't know 5 to 6 exchanges that start supporting it in the next few months. So I really thought that runes would be like one um, protocol, and then there would be like Motto, which is the other one I was looking forward to. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the whole industry is just going to kind of circle and like just I don't know, just support runes. I think there will be a ton of exchange support coming in the next few months. I think it'll just be easier to trade. I think, uh, yeah, most it'll just be that. And then once Binance starts listing, it'll just be the same craziness again. But I don't think this is the right time to do that. Anyways, like I think risk is just off. So I think like 3 months from now, 6 months from now,
Yeah,
come
just
back.
hodl in the meantime.
Yeah, hodl or just go touch grass. It's summer.
Yeah.
Just yeah.
You still going to Belgium?
I am going to Romania in I won't dox exactly when, but yeah, I'm going to Romania. So yeah, I think I'll probably come to Belgium. What else do I have to do?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, what else am I gonna do in the middle of July?
Yeah,
Like,
true. All right. Well, if anybody's out in Belgium for ETCC, hit us up. Sounds like we will both be there. See you guys on the next episode. Till then, stay decent.